Here we go.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to C3. My name is Jason. I'm one of the pastors. I need you to put your life vests on pretty early here because we're headed out in some deep water today. Ordinarily, I like to soften things up with a little joke or kind of a funny. I value your time too much today, and if you saw what we're talking about, you're already like, oh shoot, should have skipped today if this is too much for you. So I don't apologize for that. We don't. Around here, we talk about hard things because you deserve it. Your time is valuable. And I just want you to know that it's going to get heavy quick because this is something that affects all of us. We all, at some point in your family, have either hurt or been hurt by somebody in your family. Maybe it was as extreme as abuse or neglect. Maybe it was just secrets and infidelity and addiction or words said in anger, something you can't take back. We seem to have the amazing capacity in families because we share bathrooms together and we cook food for one another and we do all these things that the offenses get hotter and the effects can be more extreme. And sometimes the damage feels irreversible and it can really play out over a long, long period of time. Some of you know that very well. The problem I find hit me again just in a recent encounter. I do work in hospice and was with a family member here not too long ago, and she was doing what a lot of people do as their loved one is about ready to die, doing some life review, and had talked about the nature of relationships in her family. And she's the only one there, and she began to talk about how there was a lot of estrangement with siblings, favoritism from parents that kind of went a certain way, and as she's talking, I'm like, gosh, this has been going on for a long time. And she knew it. But she also said, and I've come to faith recently, and I'm working that out, and I joined a Bible study, and it's good stuff until they talked about forgiveness. And she does that eye roll thing like, oh boy, now I got to, bring Jesus into this whole thing. She's like, and so we're doing this study, and I just lifted my hand at one point, and I said, how do you do it? And they said, how do you what? How do you forgive? Like, why? Why is this such a big deal all the time? And she said, I got to say, I love these people, but their answers really didn't cut it for me. They said, well, you just do it. What do you mean just do it? That's like going to the gym and saying, hey, I want to get fit. And they say, well, there you go. That there was no traction. She was like, no, I really want to know how you do this. She obviously was at a point of need in her story as she's recognizing that there was a moment of opportunity with her loved one to patch things up. And it hit me again. It's like, oh my goodness. A lot of times this is what we do in the life of faith. We just say, oh, this is a good idea. Just go do it. And we don't give you some handles on it. And then we throw you in the middle of a family who, a lot of you, I've never met a functional family. Everybody's dysfunctional. So this is such an important part of these long-lasting relationships because even if you, at some point, don't live together, and some of you move as far away as you can to keep from it, but these relationships leave a trail. They have lasting import, and they don't just affect relationships this way. They start affecting relationships this way as you have kids and grandkids and all this stuff. It perpetuates out, and so it really is important today, right now, whether you meant to or not, that we get in here in the deep water and talk about how to address forgiveness in our family. Because we don't have time anymore for unrealistic expectations. We don't have time for oversimplified solutions. Now, I'm not going to give you 7 easy steps to forgiving everybody, okay? That's not how this works. And I'm not going to say, oh, by the end of a half-hour sermon, you're going to have, it's all going to be better. Some of this stuff is very complicated. Your relationships are messy. And I'm not here to sit and minimize or to pick sides and say, well, they're right and you're wrong, or you're right and they're wrong. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I want you to have some solid foundation upon which you can build and heal. Because that is God's promise to us, that healing and peace are available. But we got to get around the just do it. And we need to be able to address why this is so important. And we need to talk about how you do it. Luckily for us, the Bible gives us some great tools for that. So we're going to look at that because we need to answer these two questions so that you have a path to healing and peace. You deserve that in your life. God wants that for you in your life. The family struggles that you go through are not meant to damage your soul. Even in the midst of them, there is a way, there is a path to healing and peace. And for you younger folks tuning in, I want to save you decades of pain today. I want to save you the pain of regret. And even if you're a little more advanced in years, I want to save you any future regret. There is a way to begin wherever you are in life right now to begin to heal and to restore and to at least try. Now, I recognize that some relationships, it's going to be really, really a tall order to reconcile anything. The person might be dead, and you're like, well, what do I do then? Let me encourage you. It's as much about what happens in your own soul as what happens to the other people that are impacted. Okay? So really think about this as we go through. Because here's what it's going to boil down to. And nobody can phone this in. You can't tap your loved one and say, oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to sit this one out. Everybody has to make a choice today. Everybody has to make a choice of how you're going to handle God's truth, okay? I told you it was deep water. Ready? Let's go. Here's the story I want to use. Now, I heard this story when I was a little kid. I was going to use a flannel graph today to try and tell it the way I learned it when I was a kid. I've been cautioned away from that I would traumatize some of you by using that archaic. I think some churches still use it. Anyways, we're not going to. I'll spare you of all that. But I am going to tell you kind of a long story. It's found at the end of the book of Genesis. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. You can read it before bed tonight. It's a story of Joseph, not Jesus' dad, Joseph. Joseph in the Old Testament, at the end of the book of Genesis. It takes up almost a quarter of the book of Genesis, but again, a quick read. And if you don't know the story, I'm going to give you just kind of the 30,000-foot flyover and acclimate you to the mess that Joseph got thrust into and how he addressed forgiveness in his family. We pick up the story. Prior to that, we have Abraham, who begat Isaac, who begat Jacob, who begat Joseph. Well, Joseph was one of 12. He had 11 brothers. That's a big family. My grandpa had 10 siblings, and I heard about it. It just blew my mind to think about that many kids running around at the same time. Anyways, the time we pick up the story with Joseph, he's 17. So he's feeling all of his teenage years. Well, we get the indication that he's daddy's favorite, evidenced by the fact that his dad gave him this brightly colored, amazing Technicolor dream coat. We're also not going to sing songs from the musical today. And, who knows how Joseph took all of that, if he liked being dad's favorite. Anyways, he got this brightly colored coat and dared to wear it in the presence of his older brothers who hated him, resented the fact that he was his dad's favorite. They were fertile ground for offense. Their hearts were looking for it, and this brightly colored coat didn't help things. And then to make matters worse, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but Joseph, as we learn throughout his story, has dreams and can interpret them. And so he comes to his brothers one day and says, hey guys, I had this great dream. Basically, you're all going to bow to me. I said some dumb stuff when I was 17 too, so grace abounds. But he puts it out there. Well, that just throws fuel on the fire. And then he tells his dad, hey, I had this other dream, and you're all going to bow down to me one day. And Jacob's like, oh my gosh, keep it to yourself, son. But he doesn't. Well, so this just stirs up whatever, and who knows, I don't know that Joseph meant to harm his brothers with that, but like I say, they were ready to find a reason And they took it to an extreme because they were going to kill him. His oldest brother says, let's off him, and we'll just come up with some cover-up story. Now, I had siblings who kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know that I ever plotted murder, but they did. That's how seriously whatever Joseph had done, or whatever Jacob had done and put Joseph in the middle of it, hurt their family. Well, luckily, the oldest brother doesn't get his way, but they do throw him in a pit. They throw Joseph in a pit, and then in the midst of trying to come up with a cover-up story, basically they were going to take his amazing Technicolor coat and soak it in some blood and take it back to Dad and say, yeah, and a wild animal got him. What they end up doing is selling him. Again, I had siblings rub me the wrong way. I've never considered selling my family members into slavery, but they do. And so off Joseph goes, and the brothers, we don't really read about them for a while, but we follow the story of Joseph then, who ends up in the house of a guy down in Pharaoh's middle management called Potiphar. Joseph apparently does quite well in Potiphar's house, does a good job, and is promoted, recognized to be second underneath Potiphar in terms of oversight and stewardship of his resources and all that stuff. Potiphar's wife also takes notice of Joseph, apparently a handsome dude by this point, and tries to seduce him. Joseph refrains. Man of character and integrity, he says, I have say over everything else in Potiphar's house except you. Now you're hands off. That's not good enough for her, so she tries again and again, repeatedly, and the story says that one day it was just the two of them in the house, and she tries to put the moves on again, and this time he just straight up flees. He just runs. He recognizes he is in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's getting out of there. She grabs his cloak, his jacket or whatever, and basically hangs onto it, and he doesn't go back to get it. He's out of there. But then it becomes a case of he said, she said. And Potiphar, of course, takes her side in the story. She cries foul, and Joseph gets thrown in jail. So he's already been in a pit. He's already been sold into slavery, gets promoted. I mean, it's like a roller coaster ride. You get nauseous after a little while. But now he's in jail for a crime he didn't commit. You ever been accused unjustly? You know how that feels? It just makes you mad, or you want to get back or whatever. The story does not dwell on those things, interestingly enough. Could have. It dwelt on it with other members of the cast, but not with Joseph. So he's there in jail with some other people from Pharaoh's court, a cupbearer and a baker. Well, as the story goes, the cupbearer and the baker both have dreams, but they don't know what they mean. Joseph says, I have a little bit of experience with dreams and interpretation. And so they lay it on him, and he tells the cupbearer, he says, yeah, your dream, that's actually going to work out pretty good for you. Pharaoh's going to restore you to your position. And when that happens, remember me. I don't belong here. Sure enough, cupbearer's dream and the interpretation of it comes to pass. He's promoted and restored back into Pharaoh's court. Baker, not so good outcome. He ends up dying. So Joseph didn't worry about saying, hey, remember me, because he gets offed. It doesn't work out well for him. His dream meant he was going to die. Unfortunately, the cupbearer forgets Joseph. He gets back into his job and his new life and all this stuff for quite some time, and basically leaves Joseph. And again, Joseph could have felt a certain way about that. We do not read that he did. Until Pharaoh himself has a dream, a couple dreams, that he cannot understand or interpret. And he's asking for help. And then the cupbearer goes, hey, wait a minute. Whoops. I remember I had a guy back when I was in jail who interpreted a dream for me. That's why I'm back here. Maybe he can do that for you. Pharaoh says, well, go get him. Joseph comes. Pharaoh tells him his dreams, and Joseph says, okay, well, here's what they mean. These dreams are one and the same, Pharaoh. The next 7 years are going to be good for us. We need to do as much as we can to harvest good crops, to store what we can, because the following 7 years is going to be famine. It's going to be hard for us. Pharaoh didn't need much convincing, because immediately he promotes Joseph to second in command, vice president of operations. Says, make it happen, Joseph. And so for the next 7 years, Joseph basically oversees for all of Egypt crop production and storage and distribution. and comes up with a plan that says, okay, after the 7 years, when this drought, this famine happens, and it certainly did, that then we'll have a way not only to survive, but we can continue to sustain ourselves by selling what we have to others who come to us, and we'll make it. And so we watch that happen. The 7 good years, they do what they need to do. Joseph gets the job done. We do not hear any chatter about what was happening in the past. He's got his head down. He's doing what needs to be done. The famine hits, and it doesn't just hit part of the land. It hits all of the land, including Joseph's family. And Jacob, the dad, says, hey, guys, we're going to die if you don't go get some food. Go to Egypt and get us what we need. And so he sends the brothers, except for the youngest one. And who do they encounter? Joseph. Now, very curious, because the story says that the brothers did not recognize Joseph. Now, think about it, too. If you think somebody's dead, you're not really going to be looking for him. Unless it's Elvis, and I'm pretty sure I saw him at the gas station last evening. They weren't looking for him, but he recognized them. Now, he did something very curious, though. He played ignorant. He didn't let them know that he understood their language and that he knew who they were. And he pretends to be kind of rough with them. You guys are spies. You're coming here to check things out. You're actually here up to no good. And they're like, no. We just need food. If we can get some food, we'll go home and all this stuff. He says, no, I don't trust you guys. And so somehow they managed to get some food to take back, but he says, as collateral, I want you to leave one of your brothers here, and I want you to go home and get this younger brother you say exists and bring him back, and then you can have your other brother back. Oh my goodness. So they go home. On the way, what they realize is that Joseph has told a steward to put all their money back in their bags. So they think they've paid for this stuff, and they get halfway down the road a couple days away and realize, oh my gosh, our money's still here. He probably thinks we've stolen from him, and we're supposed to go back. How's this going to go? So they're really eat up by this. But they go home, they tell Jacob, they're like, we got to bring Benjamin back. And Jacob says, you guys are killing me. I sent you to go get food. You lost a brother along the way. Joseph's already a goner. And then you want to take Benjamin with you, and they're probably going to get him too. You are killing me. But okay. So they come back with Benjamin. And again, Joseph, I can't even imagine these reunions. This is 20 years has passed. 20 years. And he finally sees his youngest brother again. The brothers are, I guess, as repentant as they're going to be to say, hey, look, we didn't realize we got home and our money was here, so here's the money. And Dad sent us with a couple other things just to show good faith that we're not trying to steal or cheat anybody and all this stuff. Joseph's still kind of playing it safe, and sees Benjamin. He makes a banquet for them and is feeding them. And these brothers are getting kind of nervous because they're like, wait a minute, he's being mean to us, and then he's fixing us food. Is he going to snuff us out? What's going on here? We don't understand. Joseph says, okay, well, here's your stuff. Be on your way. What he does is take his silver chalice that represented his power, and he stuffed it in Benjamin's pack. And then he sent him off, and as the sons go down the road, then he sends his steward after him and basically catches him. He says, okay, whoever has this cup has got to pay, that we're going to have to take him. And the sons are ignorant of all of this. They're like, well, yeah, do whatever you need to do. Gosh, we're trying to do everything right, and we're not getting it done. Sure enough, the cup comes out of Benjamin's bag, and their hearts just sink. They're gutted. They do not understand. They are totally thinking the worst and all this stuff. So they have to go back to Joseph then and plead. And what it culminates to is Joseph is, it must have been so difficult because he's pretending as if he doesn't know them, but his heart's so full, the story says he has to leave and go weep because he's so torn up about all of this, that it's so emotional for him to be in their presence and not be able to reveal himself yet. But he's waiting. Because what the story culminates to is Judah, the brother who plotted all of this in the first place, is the one who has to fess up and say, look, we've been through a lot as a family. We conspired to get rid of a brother early on, and that's haunted us all these years. Our father is torn up over this. we've made a mess of all of this, but it's on us. And finally, Joseph reveals himself to his brothers. It's me, Joseph. Now, can you imagine that moment? Surprise! And they realize, all of them, that Joseph could have done anything he wanted to them and been justified to do so. And he chose kindness. He chose mercy. He chose to get on with it. And as the story goes, he says, look, whatever is past is past. God orchestrated all of this to get you here so that we as a family could move forward. It wasn't just you putting me in a pit. God had bigger plans in all of this. Go home, get Dad, get the whole family, and bring them here. You're going to be fine. There's about 60-some people in their family. So they go home, they tell Jacob, he's overcome with emotion and joy. They all come back. Joseph pleads his case to Pharaoh and says, here's my backstory. My family is all here. Can we set up shop for them? And Pharaoh says, give them the best land you want. Now, some of you might read that story and go, hey, wait a minute. Where's the part where the brothers get their comeuppance? Where's the part where they get shown up and feel really, it's not there. It's not there. The story takes a dramatic turn as it all kind of works out for Joseph and his family as he's able to provide for them. That story happened thousands of years ago, and it lives as a testament to the fact that whatever has happened in your family, there is a future. And it's bigger than you or I. That God can take any set of circumstances and work things for his good, but there is a cost. There is a price, and there is a choice that you must make. But let's come back to our questions. Why forgive? Why would Joseph choose to forgive? Because he recognized what I want every person in the sound of my voice to recognize is there is freedom in forgiveness. We just sang about it. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. But you won't know it until you lean into the act of forgiveness and letting things go. But not just letting them go out into the universe. There's a direction that needs to head. But understand this, the act and the art of forgiveness is part of God's larger story of what he wants to do, not just in your life, not just out this way in your family, but in the generations to come. Because of Joseph's decisions, all of the 12 tribes of Israel were preserved, and the future of God's people was allowed to move forward in a way that honored him. That's what's at stake. This just isn't about what your ex did, or your brother did, or your kids did, or your parents did. This is so much bigger. This is about the future of God's people as we move forward in life. It's very hard to move forward when you are stuck in the well and refuse to move and can't go forward. But how do you do it? How do you get unstuck? Well, that's God's big idea for today. And luckily, the Bible doesn't code over this because it talks about how long this took, the arc of this narrative to come about. God's big idea is this, is you got to choose your hard. We watch way too much TV, and we think all this stuff works out in 20, 25 minutes, and then we just go on with it. No, sometimes it takes a long time to get resolution or to deal with this stuff before you can move forward. But you have to choose your hard. You have to do this in other aspects of life. You have to choose to get up after getting a good night's sleep, take your vitamins, eat your veggies, get some exercise. You have to choose that hard as a daily discipline, or you choose the hard of having ridiculous medical bills because you haven't looked after yourself all those years. Choose your hard. You have to choose to set aside money and not spend it on every shiny thing that comes along. You have to do that over a long period of time. Or you choose the hard of being in ridiculous credit card debt and behind the 8 ball your whole life. Choose your hard. Families, you have to choose your hard. You can either choose the hard work of dealing with things. Jesus said as much. Man, if you can take care of this stuff sooner than later, do it. Do it. Know that God is pleased, because if you can forgive other people, then God can forgive you. You can take that up with Jesus. That's a pretty hard saying. But you can choose that hard, or you can choose the hard of living most of your life and beyond the lives of other people with an unnecessary amount of pain that comes from unforgiveness. It is one of the main things that agonizes people at the end of their lives, is the lack of forgiveness. Save yourself the trouble and choose the hard here instead of the hard here. But it's not a question of hard or easy. You have to choose your hard. Can you? Will you? And what's at stake if you don't? And here's the part that makes it even harder, honestly. It's not just a one-time decision. It's a daily decision, which means it becomes part of a process. One of the interesting things about Joseph's story is we never read about a moment in time where he says, okay, God, I'm done. I'm ready to let this go to you. It happened somewhere along the way, but I'm guessing it started in the well. The process of healing and restoration, and because along the way, everything that happened to Joseph, good or bad, it says God was with him. And by presumption then, Joseph was with God. He chose to partner with God and to say, God, you're going to get me through the things I don't understand. You're going to lead me through this process. I trust these dreams that you gave me, even if I sounded a little snobby when I opened my 17-year-old mouth, that you're going to get me through and that your will be accomplished in my life. That became a process for him. He trained his life to forgive, so that when it all came around, and he could not have orchestrated this, only God could have, the moment his brothers showed up, he was ready to do the right thing. Are you ready? Some of you are, and some of you are not. And it's not going to happen just because you hear a sermon and we sing a song and we get out of here. You must begin a process of choosing the hard thing and trusting that God has done what is necessary to help you do it, and to do it again, and to do it again, and do it again. Now, we're going to have to frame this out a little bit in just a couple minutes, because some of you have a lot of baggage with this word and some misunderstandings. So I want to make sure we understand that before we go any further. But here's the two things I think Joseph did right that we should be able to do when it comes to forgiveness in our families. Joseph gave his proof and his need for revenge to God instead of staying trapped where the hurt happened. How many of us have been loading ammunition for years about the thing that other person did? And you're just, boy, they say this, and I'm just going to pop both barrels and let them have it. And they never say it. And they never come to you. And they never ask for forgiveness. And they're not gonna. And so we harbor grudges. We sort of play out these scenarios in our mind where if these set of circumstances line up, we're going to take revenge, and we're going to... Joseph laid all of that aside because he understood that was going to keep him trapped. He was not going to be free living like that. That was his freedom, releasing those things. Have you done that work? Have you made that choice? Second thing I think Joseph did right was to allow God to purify his heart instead of weaponizing his pain. He didn't just let it go. He didn't just go forgive. He said, God, this is too much here. You have it. I can't do this. And God did what God always does and wants to do for you, and that is to receive it and to say, thank you. I have done the work of forgiveness so that you can get on with the business at hand, which is healing, which is doing the next right thing, which is looking out for your family, which is having emotional space to take care of other people instead of worrying about whether or not they're going to come to their senses, and then you can show them a thing or two. You can't do both. You got to have a wide enough bandwidth to be able to do this kind of work because it's going to take a lot. It might take the rest of your life to begin this process. I'm not promising easy fixes. If it happens today, that's great. But you got to be ready to do the long haul work on some of this stuff too. Now here's how I want to wrap this up. Because we use this word forgiveness. It's a big term. Some of you have a bad taste in your mouth from prior exposure to it, or somebody kind of leading you down a path that really doesn't seem very realistic. When I say forgiveness, I don't want you to hear that justice is the same thing as fairness. Some things that have happened to you or that you've done deserve justice, and you can seek those things out so that they don't happen to other people in the future. It minimizes the offense to say otherwise, but don't expect things to be fair. Joseph did not give his brothers what they deserved. He did not give them fairness. He played this game to get Judah to a point where he acknowledged what he had done. And that confession was what led to a different path. Justice is not the same as forgiveness. Healing isn't the same thing as forgetting. People that say forgive and forget probably haven't really forgotten. I don't think we do forget. I think there's a way to not bring it to mind all of the time. But when we tell ourselves that, well, I can't forget it, so I must not have forgiven, I can't reconcile that. Healing can happen even if the memories are still there. There is a way to find peace in your heart even if the memories are still there. You do not have to use them as ammunition against the world. You can pursue healing through forgiveness. Mercy is not the same thing as acceptance. You don't have to be okay with what happened. Joseph wasn't sitting there saying, hey guys, that was great. That was so much fun in the well and in prison, all that stuff. He says, no, I get it now. I understand. And because I understand and because I've released all this to God, I can show you mercy. I can give you your money back. I can bring the whole family and hook you up for the rest of your life. I can do that now because I have chosen to forgive. You can do that too. You can extend mercy even when it's not warranted. And you can find peace even if there isn't understanding. There are some things that have happened, abuses that I hear about from people very young in their life, and they live with the pain of that. I can't explain those things away, and I don't think an easy explanation does any good. But it doesn't discount the possibility of peace in your heart and in your life. So you got to ask yourself, look, what's holding you back? In your family, are there just things that you've just learned to live with, but you're just low-grade resentment and just kind of, when's this ever going to? It's not going to get better on its own. Sorry. But is it holding you back? Are you spending all your time hanging out in that well, hoping it gets better? Are you willing to choose your heart? Because the next question is, what's moving you forward? If you can find room in your heart to say, God, help me to forgive, even if circumstances don't change, even if people don't come around, can you be the one who gives me the power and the strength to heal my heart, to forgive other people so that they don't live rent-free in my soul, eating my lunch every day, that I can move on and stay close to you and you close to me? Is that your story? For some of you, I know it is. I know what you've been through, and I know God is faithful to do this work. Some of you aren't so sure. And so it's going to require something on your part today, and that is faith. Not in me, not in Joseph, not in the Bible, not in sitting in church, in the person of Jesus Christ. If you have not established that relationship, I will tell you that is the place to start. I want to pray to that end right now. I want to pray blessing on families. Lord Jesus, there's so much at stake here. Regardless of the injuries that have taken place in our families, some of them are too awful to even speak of them. Some of them are little things that have just gotten blown out of proportion and they've just gone on for way too long. God, today we can write a different story. We can be part of something bigger because we know you're at work through the art and the act of forgiveness. But it's hard. And it's impossible without you. So Jesus, we need you to come in, invade the uncomfortable spaces in our life so that we can try this at home, but not in our own strength. We lay down the leadership of our life. If there's anybody in here that has not confessed their sins to you and asked for forgiveness and received your salvation, that they would do that first as a starting place, as a building block for future healing and restoration, and that we keep our eyes wide open for the possibilities so that if and when they come around, we're ready. We're ready for you, and you get the glory and the praise. God, I expect nothing less in this place, and I recognize the influence, the impact that changes when just a few hundred people get together around this and decide it's going to be different. Because then households start to be different, neighborhoods start to be different, cities start to be different, and relationships start to be different, and futures start to be different. God, thank you in advance for what you're going to do through your servant Joseph and his example. Thank you for keeping him pure and faithful, and for doing that work in our lives as well. We give you honor and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us today at C3 Tri-Cities Online. If you were new, we would love to continue to get to know you more. Go ahead and jump onto the welcome page down below to fill out the form to receive a free gift just for being here today. There you can get to know C3 a little bit more and find out what your next step is here at C3. If you've been around here a while, we would love to continue to connect and engage with you each and every week. So go ahead and jump onto the C3 Tri-Cities Connect card on the app to let us know how your week's going. Hey, we're so glad that you joined us this morning, and we can't wait to see you next week at C3 Tri-Cities Online. See ya.